6 SUVs, real listings, prices low enough that most buyers assume something's broken before they even open the Carfax. It's not always true. Sometimes a market just forgot these existed, starting with number 6, and working toward the one that makes the least sense of all. Sixth on the list, the Dodge Journey. Mostly 2011 through 2016 models running anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000, depending on trim and mileage. Dealers barely want to advertise these. IC Cars Depreciation Tracking has flagged the Journey for years as one of the fastest falling resale values in its class, and the reason isn't really mechanical. Chrysler kept the same body shell in production for nearly a decade without a real redesign, so buyers comparing it against anything newer see it as instantly dated. That perception did something interesting to the price. It cratered faster than the car itself aged. Here's where it gets less obvious. Consumer Reports rated the third-row seating a near-unusable afterthought, which hurt resale badly, but the front 2 rows and the drivetrain, especially the 3.6-liter V6, hold up fine according to independent shop data. Buyers shopping for 3-row seating walked away. Buyers who just wanted a cheap, roomy 5-seater didn't notice they'd stumbled into a bargain built for someone else's disappointment. Fifth is a car most people wouldn't even call an SUV, and that confusion is exactly why it's priced this low. The Buick Encore, first generation, 2013 through 2016. Buick's brand image skews toward buyers twice the age of the typical crossover shopper, and CarGurus instant market value data shows Encores sitting on used lots noticeably longer than nearly identical GM platform mates wearing a Chevy badge. Same bones, slower sale, lower asking price. Dealers discount it just to move the inventory. There's a wrinkle, though. The Encore's turbocharged 1.4-liter engine has a documented pattern of carbon buildup on the intake valves, something GM technical bulletins acknowledge but rarely advertise. It's not catastrophic. A cleaning service handles it, but it's exactly the kind of unglamorous detail that keeps the price low even as the car itself keeps running fine for owners who know to ask about it. 2 SUVs in, and the pattern's already showing itself. It's rarely the engine that tanks the price. It's the reputation sitting on top of it. Fourth spot goes to the Chevrolet Equinox, specifically the first-generation truck from 2010 through 2013, not the redesign that came after, the older one with the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder. Prices on these routinely sit under $5,000, sometimes lower at auction, and that number should sound wrong for a compact SUV Chevy sold in huge volume. It isn't wrong. It's the volume itself that did the damage. GM built so many of these that supply simply outran demand for a solid 3 years straight. Edmunds' true market value estimates have tracked the Equinox as one of the slowest depreciating used SUVs in its segment for almost a decade, mostly because there's never a shortage of them to choose from. Scarcity drives price. This generation never had any. But oversupply isn't the only reason. There's an engine issue GM quietly dealt with through extended warranty coverage, excessive oil consumption on the 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, serious enough that some owners were burning a quart every couple thousand miles. Independent mechanics say a documented service history showing that consumption was addressed turns a risky Equinox into a fine one. Buyers who don't know to ask skip straight past it. Buyers who do ask end up with a full-size SUV's cargo room for the price of a compact sedan. Third is where the story shifts. The Nissan Rogue Select. Not the regular Rogue. The Select trim Nissan kept building alongside the redesigned model for 2014 and part of 2015, aimed purely at rental fleets and budget buyers. Most people shopping used cars don't even know it exists as a separate nameplate, and that confusion alone keeps its price down. NHTSA's complaint database shows nothing alarming about it. No major recall pattern, no defect campaign, nothing that would explain a price tag frequently under $6,000 for a car barely 3 or 4 years old at the time it hit the used market. What actually explains it is dumber than any mechanical flaw. It's a leftover model sold next to a brand-new-looking Rogue on the same lot, badge nearly identical, and shoppers assume it's just an older year of the same car, rather than a distinct budget trim built with a CVT some technicians consider less robust than the redesigned versions. That assumption pushes the asking price down further than the actual difference in quality justifies. There's a version of this car that's genuinely a smart buy, and a version that needs the transmission checked before anything changes hands. And almost nobody selling one bothers explaining which is which. 2 SUVs left, and the next one flips the whole pattern established so far. This isn't a car that's cheap because buyers forgot about it. It's cheap because of something buyers actively remember and got wrong. Second on this list is the Jeep Compass, first generation, 2007 through 2010 specifically, before Jeep reworked the interior and fixed most of what made these forgettable. Prices dip below $4,000 often enough that it barely registers as a purchase decision anymore, and the reason traces straight back to when these cars were new. Automotive journalists tore into the original Compass on release, calling out cheap interior plastics and a CVT transmission that felt sluggish next to actual competitors. That reputation stuck hard. Here's the part that doesn't match the reputation, though. Car complaints data on this specific generation shows most of the serious drivetrain issues cluster in the earliest production years and largely got addressed in running changes by 2009 and 2010. A car bought new in 2007 and a nearly identical one bought new in 2010 aged very differently. But resale guides rarely split that distinction out. They lump the whole generation together under one depreciation curve, and the newest, most sordid examples get dragged down by the reputation of the earliest, roughest ones. That's a strange kind of unfairness that works entirely in a buyer's favor. Shop specifically for a 2009 or 2010 build, verify the CVT service history, and the price gap between avoid this car and this is actually fine disappears almost entirely, except on sticker. Number 1, and this is the one that genuinely doesn't add up on paper. The Ford Edge, first generation, 2007 through 2010, with the 3.5-Liter V6. Full-size cargo room. A chassis Ford also used under more expensive trims, and asking prices that regularly land under $5,000 for examples with well over 100,000 miles, sometimes even under that mileage mark, which is where this one stops making sense. Dealer inventory turnover data, tracked by CarGurus, shows Edges from this generation sitting on lots for a shorter time than almost anything else on this list, which usually means a car is priced to move fast rather than price low because nobody wants it. That's a different kind of cheap. It's not neglect. It's a dealer who knows exactly what the car is worth to the right buyer and prices it to disappear off the lot before that buyer changes their mind. The catch, and there's always one, sits in the transmission. Ford's 6-speed automatic from this era has a documented history of rough shifting once fluid service gets skipped past the recommended interval, something independent Ford technicians bring up unprompted almost every time this generation comes up. Stay current on that one service item, and the Edge holds up as well as SUVs costing 3 times as much. Skip it, and it becomes the reason this whole list has a warning label. 6 SUVs, 6 completely different reasons for the same low number on the sticker. And that's really the thing we're sitting with for a second. Nobody selling the Dodge Journey mentions the outdated body shell. Nobody selling the Buick Encore mentions the carbon buildup pattern. Nobody flags which Nissan Rogue Select actually needs the transmission checked before money changes hands. The information exists. It's just scattered across service bulletins, complaint databases, and depreciation reports that a buyer standing on a dealer lot has zero reason to have already read. That gap between what a price tag shows and what it's actually built from is all 6 of these live. Some of it's genuine bad luck for the car. The Equinox got punished for existing in huge numbers. The Compass for mistakes Jeep fixed years before most people noticed. Some of it's closer to a blind spot. A badge that looks unremarkable next to a shinier one on the same lot. A reputation frozen in a review written before the actual fix shipped. None of it means broken. It means underpriced relative to what the research actually says, which is a very different thing than most shoppers assume when a number looks this low. There's a pattern worth carrying into any used SUV search beyond this list. 2. The car that scares people off almost never scares off for the reason people think. It's rarely the engine block failing outright. It's a documented service item nobody asked about, a trim confusion nobody clarified, or a reputation that outlived the actual problem by half a decade. Checking that gap before walking away from a cheap listing, instead of trusting a number's optics to explain itself, is usually worth more than any single feature on the spec sheet. That's the real thread connecting a Dodge Journey to a Ford Edge that shouldn't logically cost the same as a used motorcycle. The market isn't pricing these SUVs on what they're actually worth to someone who does the homework. It's pricing them on reputation, supply, and a badge's ability to blend into the background on a crowded lot. Homework closes that gap fast. If one of these six happens to be sitting on a nearby lot right now, it might be worth a second look before writing it off as just another cheap old SUV. And if breakdowns like this one are useful, sticking around for the next used car list is an easy way to catch the next underpriced find before everyone else does.